I mean, I'll take just one of our industries, which is housing. So if you don't solve the talent problem in manufacturing and building materials and construction of homes, then you can't solve the housing problem, which is an affordability problem and an underbuilt problem, right? So let's just say we have 5 million homes underbuilt. In order for the existing generation, we can't build enough. So if you don't solve those problems, you can go as basic as people who need housing won't have housing. So for us to make sure that people who need housing have housing, we need to solve the construction jobs. So we do a lot training contractors and more folks in that end. We need to do a lot to build manufacturing jobs so we can build the products needed to build those 5 million homes.
Mark Rayfield is the CEO of Saint-Gobain North America and CertainTeed, companies which make sustainable materials for residential, commercial, and transportation construction. I spoke with Rayfield and other employers at the 2024 Manufacturing Institute Workforce Summit in Minneapolis. The concerns they each shared were similar, whether they led large manufacturing companies like Saint-Gobain, which has 150 locations in the US and Canada and more than 160,000 employees worldwide, or smaller companies with one US location and fewer than 100 employees. They all say there's an urgent need to fill manufacturing jobs, positions that have become more tech-oriented, and that they need innovative ways to recruit, cultivate, and retain the skilled workforce for jobs that don't necessarily need college degrees. The Manufacturing Institute, the nonprofit arm of the National Association of Manufacturers, says employers are hiring as fast as they can to fill jobs coming online, driven in part by private investments and by investments of federal money through the CHIPS and Science Act and the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. A recent report from the MI and Deloitte forecasts that over the next 8 years, the manufacturing industry will need as many as 3.8 million additional workers, many with digital skills. In part one of this three-part series, Working Nation explores what's at stake in large manufacturing, with two companies looking at new ways of recruiting.
Manufacturing was the backbone of the economy for a long, long time. And then as we entered into the 2000s, we went through really two different periods of contraction. Those were really painful. And in the early 2000s, we lost roughly 3 million jobs. And then in the late 2000s, we lost another 3 million jobs. So we went from 18 million jobs to 12 million in less than a decade. And I think there was a widespread belief that manufacturing was dead in the country and we weren't going to make things here anymore.
Gardner Carrick is Chief Program Officer of the Manufacturing Institute. We'll be hearing a lot from him in this three-part series. He says that U.S. manufacturing started picking up in 2010, and that surge brought new opportunities.
It forced the manufacturing industry to adopt technologies that allowed it to automate, that allowed it to cut costs, that allowed it to be more efficient, that allowed it to be more competitive in the global economy and to not compete on lower wages, which is not something that benefits anyone in the United States, but to compete on productivity and on quality. That growth continued. It was supported by policies in some cases at the federal level. It was supercharged by COVID and the desire to reshore or friendshore or shorten supply chains because of the disruptions that occurred during that period. And it's continued to increase as policy decisions have focused on ensuring that critical industries are found in the U.S. and that critical products are made in the United States. So we went from an industry that was in decline and that had not a lot of confidence to 15 years later, an industry that everyone recognizes needs to be a backbone of the United States economy.
But the manufacturing rebound has brought challenges as well. Companies, especially large manufacturers, have been scrambling to find skilled talent.
If we're looking at what is happening in manufacturing today and all the gaps, it doesn't make any sense. Just a few years ago, everybody was directed out of manufacturing. Manufacturing jobs are going away. We almost created a problem for our workforce and for our employers with deploying people out of manufacturing to go into other jobs. It was communicated that manufacturing jobs are dead ends. You will go there, you will lose your job. It actually, looking at just pathways from and into manufacturing, it is the most diverse. Manufacturing people make the best supply chain people in finance, in healthcare. They move in all kind of jobs.
That's Yustina Saleh, Managing Director of Innovation Solutions at the labor research organization Burning Glass Institute. Saleh explains that discouraging people to pursue manufacturing careers has had a significant impact, not only in the industry, but in the whole supply chain.
There is this little city that is an auto manufacturing city. They also produce a lot of industrial engineers. And I'm looking at the data. There is a very, very big gap between the industrial engineers and the supplies. Like, what is happening if you have all this pipeline? And it turns out they're looking for machinists who actually have industrial engineering skills, not the other way around. And that is where the upskilling, we miss such a huge opportunity between what is it that employers are looking for, who would be best to understand the current processes and transform them into the future than the ones that are working now. And between employers really not providing this kind of information, it's sad, but the gaps today are more profound than others. We're seeing the cluster of manufacturing jobs is overlapping a lot more with the sciences, overlapping a lot more with engineering and supply chain, with even technology. It's a surplus and a deficit of labor at the same time because of that friction and lack of responsiveness in our systems.
The good old days, high schools used to produce candidates that already had some skills working with their hand and eye coordination. We've removed those shop classes and threw computers on the table, and those are good, but it doesn't help manufacturing because we still have processes that requires hand and eye coordination.
Paul Myles is the Senior Manager of Government Workforce Development Training for Magna International, a global technology mobility component supplier with 58 manufacturing facilities across the U.S. Myles told me that community colleges have filled some of the education gap for aspiring manufacturing employees, but not completely. He believes that more companies need to partner with community colleges to help the employees skill up.
That partnership creates that bridge for that skills development. So if you hire a person, bring them into your facility, there's an opportunity that you can send him or her to that community college to get the skills you need so you're not tied up your equipment. But you have to train up. Skilled trades folks are very hard to come by nowadays. A lot of competition. You need to make sure that your wages are in line with what's going on to the community so they don't jump ship and go next door. A lot of challenges on manufacturing and businesses as a whole as we continue to grow in this area to 4.0 manufacturing.
Saleh believes the manufacturing industry, especially large manufacturers, can reverse the labor deficit, but it'll take some time. That's because one solution starts with cultivating interest in the industry early, very early.
I'm passionate about the manufacturing industry, all the way from K through 12 to educate people about what these jobs are, even the style of living. It's very, very different because it isn't you're on a machine. It looks a lot more akin to a technology job than a production in a factory and manning a machine. It's different. The style is different. The pay is different. Everything is different. We gotta educate them much early on.
Saleh also thinks that vocational education in the U.S. should be revamped to show students that it's not the so-called dead-end career of yesteryear, but that many positions are essentially technology jobs that happen to be in heavy manufacturing. She says this is a real pathway to a well-paying career.
Places in Europe where apprenticeship programs and vocational education is much stronger, you see that the industry is very vibrant because you already accepted that there are alternate pathways that are great, high-paying jobs with a lot of stability. And we don't have a comparative level there because you need a degree, and the degree will get you into these kind of white-collar jobs. And that mentality needs to change. What we do with our VOTEC needs to be transformed quite a bit and much, much earlier. So between really endorsing the alternate pathway, sometimes it sounds like sour grapes. I didn't get a college degree, so what now? Whereas in Europe, the person already knows that they are seeking that much earlier. And so when we look at the skill-based hiring in the auto industry, huge difference between what an industrial engineer, for example, is called and is expected to have in companies that are based in the US versus companies that are headquartered in Europe. Why is it that way? Why are we still sticking to, if we don't have that degree, we're losing our prestige or something? And it needs to start early, education to parents, to students much earlier.
I think my message would be, if you want to come work for us, we'd love to have you.
Mark Rayfield of Saint-Gobain told me that 3/4 of the jobs at the company don't require a college degree. But that doesn't mean new applicants don't need skills. It's just that the company has the ability to train people with the right aptitude and the right attitude.
We have a very robust internship program, which expands every single year. And it's at all of our plants and all of our offices. And we drive for a huge diversity of our interns coming in, so we get a rich group of people coming in there. We have the essentials of manufacturing, essentials of finance, essentials of sales, all these essentials of programs where we bring people in right out of college. And we give them 3 to 4 6-month assignments in various businesses where they actually do products and they're part of a team, and then they flow right into the business, which is very good at attracting talent. We also have a lot of businesses in each region. Say you live in the Southeast, and so you want to stay in the Southeast, your family's there. Well, we have 17 plants in the Southeast. So you can come in as a line operator in a roofing plant, become a line supervisor in a siding plant, and then go on and become a plant manager in an insulation plant. You can build a career without ever leaving that region, sometimes even that state. So we try to recruit and retain talent now more regionally because people aren't as likely to move across country as much as they were maybe in my generation. And so that's, I think, a great power that we have.
Rayfield explained that building a reputation for safety with competitive wages helps with recruiting. But once the employee starts, it's important to retain them. For that, Saint-Gobain uses a buddy system.
What's the best thing that happens when you go someplace new? Someone puts their arm around you and say, hey, I'm here for you. I'm your buddy. Here's how it works. Here's the unwritten rules in the plant of how the kind of culture works in the plant. And if you need anything, I'm here for you. And we make sure we tie them into a buddy system so that when they come in, they have that security. And they have a group of people they can go to, not just their line supervisors, but peers, to tell them how the system works. And then with that partnership, you release some of that stress. You learn a lot going forward. And then from there, you just continue to build that buddy system and that mentorship out.
Paul Myles of Magna International shared some innovative ways the company reaches out to the potential employees. One is an internal training center for high school students to give them a sense outside of the classroom of what a manufacturing career might look like.
So it's a glass partition. They can see the manufacturing, the bigger picture. But within that, they're learning their math, their reading, their economics, and so forth. But they're also learning robotics resistance welding in this particular facility. This allows that young individual to test the waters before they hit that door for graduation, right? And then some will have their education pathway laid out to where they know they're going to college. Some may not have filled out that fast in time, or their grades weren't what they thought they were, or what they did know they were. They have these skill sets that they've learned while they were coming to our facility.
The company has hired many students through that track. Once they're hired, Magna puts them on a pathway with training and credentials. That helps with retention by letting employees see a future for themselves in a career that can have an impact on the world.
It's just a matter of engaging them again. At 90 days, we will suggest a pathway for them and utilizing training opportunities or building stackable credentials in areas where they're working at. So they're building more confidence in what they do. Confidence always will retain people because you don't feel the pressure every day, right? But the path is to get them to an apprenticeship program as quickly as possible. They feel the commitment and we can see the growth. But you have an opportunity to pivot to another department or another trade within the organization.
As with Saint-Gobain, Magna has also made a strong effort to recruit and train in rural areas so employees are more likely to stay around. And the company reminds potential employees that it's part of the community.
At the beginning, one of our facilities in Missouri was in a rural area, and a lot of folks that were hired in never experienced manufacturing, didn't know what it was, but they were eager to learn. And that's why we built an internal training center within that facility, so they didn't have to drive into the city, to the community college, right? Because there's not one close in proximity, but that's what a company or business will have to do, build your internal resource to when you're onboarding, you're not tying up your equipment, but you can sidebar them on other equipment similar and then train them to the level, giving them that confidence, building that retention, giving them the skills that they need, and that creates the loyalty and retention for the company.
And Magna has a liaison to help the company stay engaged with the community. That engagement helps with recruitment and retention.
Everything from food drives to job opportunities to support the community, understand what the heartbeat is, right? And that's critical because some of our workers may be from that community, some may not be, but the ones that are in the community that may not have heard about it, here's an opportunity when we go to those town halls and introduce ourselves, or we have that barbecue or that baseball game, there's a Magna banner on. Who is this? The curiosity has risen. It's us to make sure that we are able to engage with that community and just be good stewards, right? But as far as skills, there's one, a great attitude. Look at this as a great opportunity, a learning springboard for you. And we will teach you the skills that you need depending on where you're working. And as we work with you and develop you, then we'll know how much more we can give you in those specific areas. But if you have those vocational skills, those tech skills, you're a mechanic, we want you because we can then put you into an apprenticeship, grow you into that future person to support operations on a daily basis.
Both Rayfield and Myles told me the same thing. Skills are important for manufacturing jobs, but the soft skills like communication, critical thinking, even the willingness to show up on time are fundamental. As for ever-changing tech skills, a manufacturer has to be willing and able to train and retrain.
You have to be hiring for the day and growing your people for the future and continuously hiring. So you never get away from that curve, right? You're just always riding that wave out of balance. And I think it's going to continue, which is great for America. We're bringing good jobs back to America from things that were offshore, but it's just going to be at a higher level. I mean, it's at a 4.0 level where, you can look at your phone and understand how production's going, how many you're making, what if the equipment may be at a point of where it's going to fail, where you need to maybe stop this line and start another line. So it's an exciting time, constantly changing.
You've been listening to part 1 of a special 3-part series on the boom in hiring in manufacturing and how employers are working to fill thousands of jobs across the country. Coming up in our next episodes, we'll explore how smaller employers are recruiting and retaining talent and how companies can reach underrepresented groups, including veterans and women.
When I did my internship in a local manufacturing facility, there were not very many women in that facility. Fast forward 25 years, and we're going to find a lot more women in that facility. They're machinists, they're doing inspection, they're doing front office jobs, they're helping with the continuous improvement. They are throughout the organization, whether male or female. I think there are good paying on great opportunities in manufacturing if you want to pursue that.
I'm Ramona Schindelheim, Editor-in-Chief of Working Nation. Thanks for listening.